So good to see you here, Devita.
Good to see you guys. Nice to be on your Insta Live today.
Yes, and thank you for doing this. All of you know her and know this guy who's regularly with us. But let me do the boring formal introduction, because I think it's necessary for everyone to once hear about the many accolades that the two of these people have. You know, we have somebody who's been the alumni of Harvard Business School. She studied at the London School of Economics, also at University of Southern California, and also at HR College. This is all what her team told me to say so that she looks smart. But she's
I'm also in the Mensa, which is a society for people of high IQ. So I don't need my team to say that I am certified smart.
I just do putting your leg, but very, very somebody who's extremely smart, and not just smart, but also very witty and funny. She is Asia's richest under 40 woman. You know, under the age of 40, she's the richest woman in all of Asia. But she's also a Marwari to boot, which is why she doesn't give me a free television ever in her life. She is the founder of this company that she started at the age of 24 and started working from when she was 16 years of age. It's honestly a pleasure and an honor to be able to talk to somebody who's been a mentor, is now a friend, and quite honestly, one of the most inspiring young people that I've met, Devita Saraf. Devita, welcome to the show. You're supposed to clap. You're supposed to clap for me and say, this is a fantastic introduction, Rishabh.
Thank you so much, Rishabh. My day is made, yes.
And of course, we have the ever smiling young entrepreneur who started a university and wants to bring back Takshashila. And that's the really cool part about what Sahil's trying to do. Everyone who wants to study business administration can study in 100 schools, but this fellow wants to bring back business administration in a way that was taught in the ages gone by. And that's the really cool part about what Sahil's wanting to do. And he's setting up this university at Sonipat. And thanks so much, Sahil, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to be able to have this conversation with you.
Thanks a lot, Rishabh. It is a pleasure meeting you here.
Likewise.
Let me start off by asking Devita this question, saying, is entrepreneurship something that you always dreamed of, or is it something is it something that came to you naturally?
Yeah, I think from the time I was really little, I saw that I grew up in a Marwari household, and I grew up seeing the men have a lot of power and respect and always doing important big things. So I think one of the first messages that went into my head as a very small child was that I want to be like that. I want to have that respect, that power. I want to be the boss. And of course, slowly I realized what it is like to own a business, head a business, and then earn that respect and power. So from as long as I remember, I think I've just always wanted to be an entrepreneur.
You always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Let me ask Sahil this. When did you get this idea of starting this entire university? Is it something that you always had, or is it something that over a period of time came to you?
No, it came over the period of time. I think most strongly it came when I was in college, because I was fortunate to have some of the best education, and yet I felt that it can be better. So I thought, why not create an educational system which is not just one university, but then work with other institutions and inspire other institutions also to provide a better service to the students. So that is when it happened. And then after college, I decided I'll not take up a job and do something like this.
No, and you studied at IIT Bombay, and you studied at all these fancy colleges yourself as well, Sahil. And then the desire to set up a university. Like I mentioned, that you want to set up a university with a difference. But tell me this one thing: what in the field of business administration, what is it different that students are going to get to learn at, say, Rishabh University vis-a-vis other places across? Like, why not go to the Harvards of the world, or why not go to that's Devita's point, of course. But why not go to the Harvards of the world? Why come to Rishabh in order to study business administration?
I would say, if you are getting an MBA at Harvard, please go there. I'm not saying that we will teach you better than an MBA at Harvard. No claim, not like that. But what I definitely want to say is that India is a different business culture. And what we very strongly believe in is entrepreneurship is not just starting up, making a mobile app, making a web app, etc. Entrepreneurship really is in the DNA of the Indian society. And if we study it, and if we extract principles out of it, and if we try to apply it in our careers, we become entrepreneurial. Even if we don't become entrepreneurs, we become entrepreneurial. And that is what we are trying to do at our school of, so we call it our school as the school of entrepreneurship. We don't call it as a school of business or a school of management. And that's the core difference that we want to create, that entrepreneurship is a mindset. It's not just a career choice. It is something that will help you grow in any career you choose, and not just in your career. It will help you in your personal life. It will help you in your social life. It will help you, overall as a personality. So that is the difference that we are creating. And this is how we actually do this is through our campus culture, through our mentorship, through our curriculum and pedagogy, through the projects we give, through the assignments we give. So there is the core difference. Business administration is not a subject to study, but rather entrepreneurship is a mindset to nurture.
It's a great, this is a great line that you said towards the end. And you also mentioned something which was very important, which is in terms of having, the practical experience, because formal education is one thing, but so also the practical experience also plays a big role in shaping people, right? And to that end, Devita, you studied at some of the best schools across the world. But I remember studying at HR college, and honestly, when Indushani ma'am used to give us the opportunity of doing more things when it comes to festivals and internships, in comparison to the formal Manan Prakashan and Vipul Prakashan textbooks, which I have never read in my life, I thought I landed up learning a little bit more. Of course, a few years later, I realized that I should have studied a little more. But how important is formal education versus practical exposure? Because you've got both, right? So if you were to measure and say if one is better than the other, or both equally important?
I think one of the first things that's very important to be a successful entrepreneur is you have to be very self-driven. And what happens is people who are a lot more academic, who probably make very high-performing professionals, generally like to sort of stick to the syllabus that, we've been told to do this, and we will make sure that we come first in class or whatever it may be. Entrepreneurship generally are people who think a little out of the syllabus, who generally kind of want to do their own thing, make their own name, experiment, express themselves. So when I was also in HR college, I think I was known as, you know this, but I was known as the Spice Girl of HR college, because I used to love to dance, and I used to choreograph and put up like stage shows at Talent Parade and every possible opportunity to like be out there. I was the host for Talent Parade that year. And I felt that what that really taught me actually was, yeah, great, I can become a high performing businessman or an entrepreneur or whatever CEO may be in the class. But that enthusiasm for life, that drive to do something new, will 100% come when you are an entrepreneur. Incidentally, I must say this, after HR, I was at USC for my undergrad, and I started my own student organization called Global Business Leaders. And that's when I realized that no one gives you an invitation to become an entrepreneur. You kind of just either find the opportunity or have some drive to do it. And that is actually what inspired me to start my own business many years later. That I didn't wait for someone to say, why don't you start a business? It just was like, you know what, I can, why shouldn't I? So I will 100% encourage students. Yeah, you can be like a 95% student and, get good marks, or you can be an 85% student and have 2 or 3 hobbies that you really want to excel at. And I think entrepreneurs are in general people persons. There's someone who is specialists. They're more generalists, which comes out of doing all these things, as I said, that I call out of syllabus.
So you need to be an outstanding student, in the sense that you need to also stand outside class occasionally and try to do things that are outside the syllabus, because that's also as important as things that are within the syllabus. That's what I'm taking away from your answer. But let me take this to Sahil and ask him also this, saying that, Sahil, how important is what Devita said? She said that the holistic development of the human brain, the child per se, is not just academic rigor. It's also going beyond the classroom and actually doing much more. What kind of emphasis will you put on this? Because one of the biggest problems and challenges of higher learning in India is that yet it is very academically driven. And beyond the academics, there is very little exposure. And therefore, there is a huge gap between, and when I talk to some of the industrialists who tolerate me, a few of them, and when they look at us and they say that, there's a lot of difference between those who are passing out and the ones that we want to employ in our companies. So, which is why, Sahil, how do you propose to bridge that gap? Are internships and practical exposure part of the plan, which I'm sure they would be, but how are you going to bridge that big gap between industry and curriculum?
Thanks, Rishi. So I totally agree with what Devita was saying. So what is happening is that because the syllabus are not getting refined, reviewed and edited, updated very frequently, and there's certain kind of boxing that has happened to the syllabus, it is becoming irrelevant increasingly. And because of that, the main problem that education is facing is education has lost its purpose. People are just questioning the very purpose of why should I go to college and do this. Whereas to just train the brain to think properly, education can become a very powerful medium. So when we get the practical experience, and that helps us a lot in real life problem solving and starting up and creating our businesses. Sometimes what it does not help us is in developing ways of thinking, and that is where education can play a big role. So if we nurture that ability to learn and ability to think at the age when the person is a student, I think that can go a long way. So what we do is, in terms of holistic learning, as Devita was saying, I think there are 4 components to this thing, which is mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. A lot of our education is focused just on mental, and within mental also, it is they're given a syllabus and they're not really provoked to think beyond that. So that is the challenge that we are solving by making it more holistic. And in terms of internship also, that's a very important component of education. I was just meeting a student today. He's a first year student. He just completed 7 months of his education with us, undergraduate, and he's a business administration student. And I asked him what is he going to do for summers, and he said that he studied some extra courses in data analytics, and he's going for an internship in Mumbai with HDFC. I was kind of very surprised that after first year, just a few months, he's going to do a data analytics internship with HDFC. And that's the kind of curiosity and desire, if we spark in the students, they will find their way. We have to just enable them with that curiosity.
I thought you were going to say that he's going to come to Bombay and then he's going to join I.I.M.U.N. I was like, that's the right way forward. But no, this is excellent. This is so nice to hear, and it really makes me feel very happy, because I remember the fact that how much we were pushed in order to try to get these internships, and how we were encouraged in terms of school and college in order to go beyond the normal curriculum. So I'm glad that something like that's happening, and I think that's what a lot of the education system abroad, which is based on India in some way, is giving that kind of exposure, and therefore a lot of people choose to study at all of these fancy schools overseas. But let me come back to this. In terms of entrepreneurship, or whether it be entrepreneur or entrepreneurs, there are certain difficulties that I'm sure, Devita, you faced. Now, what was the most challenging thing when you started out? When you started out, from the 4 P's that we learn in our textbook that are required in a business, what was the most challenging out of that?
Well, to be honest, if I have to put it in context with what's happening in the business world today and all the tumbling unicorn stocks, I think when it comes to product, price, place, promotion, it's ever evolving. You probably have finalized what industry you want to be in. So product is pretty much ticked. In terms of price, of course, if you create value, people are going to be able to pay you more. That's the second part is ticked. When it comes to place, to be, whether you have a store, whether sitting online, doesn't matter. When it comes to promotion, there are 50 ways to do digital, online, offline promotion. So I would say these aspects of business, you kind of can figure out what you want to do and make your choices along the way. I think there are 2 parts to it that I think which are very important as entrepreneurs that I focused on back then and even now makes sense. 1 is patience and 2 is profitability. So when I say patience, I think I didn't burn through a crazy amount of capital building my business. I probably took about like some 10, 12 lakhs from my dad to start this company that I had the vision for, set up my lab, my team, my stores, got some working capital for inventory, and then immediately started selling our product. And this was for like many years, we put in time to vet our product, train our teams, create our brand, put in all these processes, and keep tweaking our business model in a way that we found were profitable. 8 years later, we went from 0 to 35 crores in 8 years. And then when we really decided to press the pedal on growing the business, we went within 3 years from 35 crores to 1,000 crores. Now, the good thing in that is by the time we went there, we were very sure of our business, our product, our teams, all the partnerships we had. We were able to, grow business. Able to grow business very profitably. So what has happened in today's day and age, I think people are in a big hurry that, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to be like this billionaire, and in 18 months, it's not going to happen. Like, if you want to build something that lasts, it's like a building, take your time to make it nicely. Don't go and make a shack. Build something with a lot of patience. The second thing is don't lose money. I think one thing is people be like, oh, let me be an entrepreneur because it'll make me famous. It'll impress people. I'll get some awards. I'll get, I don't know, like, some kind of higher achievement. The purpose of business is to make money. The purpose of business is business. So whatever you do, please don't lose money. Focus on making a profit. And I think what worked for me and what challenges is to show that, listen, I know what I'm doing. Be patient. We're going to get there. But when we do, it's going to give us great returns. So I would say that 4 Ps, you can figure it out. You can get people, not rocket science. But profitability and patience are 2 things which are not trending when it comes to entrepreneurship today. That kind of needs to be brought back into style, because in Rishihood terms, people have been entrepreneurs, great entrepreneurs for centuries, and don't always have like the whole VCPE ecosystem. Even with something basic, they're able to build something. So you don't get carried away by all these trends of valuation. I think build something that actually has value.
Don't get carried away by trends, and build something that actually has value. Don't be swayed by valuation. A great statement, but it's easy to say, Devita. It's difficult to actually implement, because I'll tell you, a lot of people who start off and who want to become entrepreneurs come from humble families and humble backgrounds, and when they go on the road of earning a lot of material wealth, and that's my next thing that I wanted to ask you, is they automatically focus on the overnight success stories. They see the overnight success stories and they say that, I also want to be that. They make that, they make a lot of money, but eventually then they sell out these companies, and these companies then eventually get colonized in another way. So there was colonization that took place earlier, and now we have these digital colonizations that are taking place. A close observation of all our unicorns and where they are currently, you'll see that most of the unicorns are owned by foreign investors and less by Indians, so to say. Sahil, I want to bring you in on this, saying that, don't you think that in terms of entrepreneurship, somewhere in our curriculums, we've got it wrong, saying that all you need to focus is on material wealth and not on giving back to society? Because one of the biggest takeaways that I've learned from my small interactions with a lot of people is that, Rishabh, focus on solving a problem which basically gives back in a way to society, and in that you will automatically see good happening both for you and for everybody else. And there is Sarvesh Shashi who's saying, Devita, nice to see you. Hi Sarvesh, good to see you as well. I'm also on the chat, you can say hi. but Sahil, your thoughts?
So I think what is happening, Rishabh, is that, as Devita was saying, I absolutely agree that there is this lack of awareness or a sense of clarity among youth, and they are following the trends. And one day we hire 1,000 people, next day we have to fire 1,000 people, and this profitability, and patience, the 2 most important things. Somehow the system is getting tuned to do exactly the opposite, where we don't care about the profitability, and the less impatient you are, the faster you can get your customer acquisition, and your valuation keeps growing. What we need to do is we need to showcase examples of exactly opposite successful businesses, traditional businesses, manufacturing houses, service industry. There's so much that Devita herself is an example. There's so much that has happened which was not a valuation game. Somehow for the glamour and newsworthiness, probably all these stories are nicer to tell, and of course a lot of them are creating a lot of new innovation. But what we also need to expose the young generation, the young students, is that there is this entire pool of very slow, steady, successful, profitable businesses which are able to create value for the society, which are able to create profits for themselves and for their employees, and which are in fact doing a lot of giving back, as you said. I think with this holistic approach to education, where we also focus on this emotional and spiritual element of learning, a lot of this can be brought into the classroom. For example, this is impatience, and this is a result of greed. And once we start understanding our emotions and what they lead us to, I think people will start questioning their business decisions. And if we tell them that these are the decisions someone took at in their businesses, we need to bring in these case studies where people took some decisions which would look very stupid from a business sense, but which ended up bringing a lot of purpose and patience and profitability to the business. That is what we need to do.
No, true what you said, that we need to give case studies and examples of role models who are not overnight successes, but slow and steady eventually wins the race, is what I remember from that kindergarten story. But somehow we've forgotten that the tortoise eventually wins the race, and we're all looking to be the heads per se. So, but the idea and the notion that you have, and both of you have, that you should be patient and so on and so forth. It's let me give you an example and tell you of somebody who was from the organization, very humble background, and got the opportunity of selling his company or valuing his company for a lot of money. Now, for that person, it is a great opportunity to be able to change his socio-economic background and to the aspirational life that he's always wanted. He's able to achieve that. Many would be, including I, told him saying that, without taking any names, told him saying that, don't sell out your company at this juncture. Try to build and try to make sure that your product is better, be patient, and eventually your company is going to be much more successful than what it is today. It's just like the story of Snapchat. Had they eventually sold out at an early age, then it wouldn't have been the multi-billion-dollar enterprise that it is. To that end, it's very alluring and shows such a Shark Tank India with nothing taken away from them. I think they encourage entrepreneurship for sure, but this is the culture that they're propagating. The culture that let's build products and make them successful overnight, and then from that, let's build this valuation game. And eventually in that valuation game, as I saw the analysis of an edtech company, and they had less than 1,000 users, Sahib. And you'd be surprised, Devita, less than 1,000 users, but a valuation of 270 crore. And that is perplexing. The fact that this entire culture is created, is it students to blame? Or more than students, is it investors to blame, and people who are, who are probably the parents of all these, some of the students who are watching today, who want to be these investors and these sharks and invest in companies such as this? Because a young 18-year-old, sorry, but just before you come in, a young 18-year-old, for him, or a young 25-year-old or a 30-year-old would look at so much of money coming all of a sudden and will get enamored by it, vis-a-vis actually, learning formal education, doing the internships, so on and so forth. So don't you think at some point in time, some of these shows, the culture that we're building in our country is also in a way detrimental?
Well, I'll answer two parts of your question that you asked. One is this entire valuation and sellout culture, is that colonization, is that bad? Two, what about shows like Shark Tank? And I'll give some little bit of insider news out there. The first part, and this is something that they taught us at Harvard Business School, as I said, that, I'm a big fan of formal education. I actually just graduated from my MBA, my CEO equivalent of MBA called OPM at Harvard Business School in March. So I'm just a fresh grad. And one of the things that they taught us, which I thought was very valid, and it was very interesting to sit in the classroom after so many years, because things like Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, these things weren't taught when I was in college, like all those years ago. And it was very nice to get a refresher and keep up with this ever-changing world and see how businesses and all traditional businesses have digitized, or what are the macroeconomic challenges. So it's always good to keep yourself updated and be humble enough to go to these courses after you build a business and say, yeah, there's more to learn, rather than, I know as they say, MBA, mane baddu average. So you don't want to be on that level either. But to come to more things that they taught us in Harvard Business School, which I thought might answer the question that you posed first, was they asked a very important question as an entrepreneur is, do you want to be rich or do you want to be king? Do you want to own 20% of 1,000 crore business, or do you want to own 100% of 100 crore business? In the first situation, you're going to have 200 crores, but then you don't have much say, you don't have much control, you don't have much, and that's what happens with most of these young entrepreneurs. They end up selling out because their equity is diluted so badly. In the second situation, it's your headache, but it's your control. There's only so much you can grow. Growth and liquidity and control always go hand in hand. But then you say, look, this is my business, I'll do what I want with it. To be very honest, I think the drivers for each of these factors of do you want to be rich or do you want to be king has to be very personal. If you're someone who's obviously grown from a social economic strata where you really care for that upward mobility, you probably don't have an experience of family members or entrepreneurs. The rich thing, nothing wrong with it. I mean, that money matters and, people want to go for it. The second thing is, if you're maybe from a more entrepreneurial background or you care for that sort of steady, stable word that you use, then maybe the king aspect works. So maybe you like just do things your way because you know that you probably make the world's worst employee. And so you want to be king and run your own little fiefdom in the way you want. So I would not be that judgy to say that, oh my God, look at these people, they sold out for cash. I mean, you care for cash, go for it. You care for control, go for it. Every entrepreneur is different. There isn't one formula. The second part that I will bring it up to you, I was offered Shark Tank India to be one of the judges.
Really? This is news. This is sensational breaking news. I'm going to take this clip and send it to Bombay Times. but go on. Go on. This stays between you, me, and the internet.
And the 513 people watching this. But I think I had my reservations when I was when they spoke to me and we did a call with the production team, the producers, etc. Is one thing is, entrepreneurship is a serious job. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're a boss, business owner, your customers, your bankers, your suppliers, most importantly, your employees, family members, I think entrepreneurship should be taken very seriously. I'm always worried when entrepreneurship is blending with entertainment. You can't take entrepreneurial work, which is so serious and people's livelihoods depend on it, and turn it into entertainment. So I was myself not as, open-minded to the show, but I think it would be very important for me to support entrepreneurship where I know I'm doing it because I genuinely care to promote these entrepreneurs and not for some kind of publicity face value. So anyone who does come in as an investor, anyone who does come in as a mentor, like have your why is right, why you want to do this. And please understand that these are people's livelihoods that you're being part of. So don't take any of those mentorships only as this PR opportunity. Take it as a strong responsibility. And if you're not up to it, then pass it on. Don't disrespect, small entrepreneurs and just for you, that's 2 lakh, 3 lakhs may be nothing. For them, it's their whole life. So unless you want to take the responsibility of it, I think just don't use it to promote your own self. So that's the reason I sometimes a little wary when entrepreneurs are too particular about chasing fame and publicity. And very often I feel just do a lot of CSR for PR. And that's, I think, is, wrong mentorship can be also very dangerous.
CSR for PR. That is a conversation. That is a topic for another chat and for another conversation for sure. A very long one, but let me ask Sahil one final question before we go to my favorite segment, which is asking a rapid fire. Let me ask you this, Sahil, that the learning pedagogy in terms of business administration and in your case, of course, entrepreneurship. Something that you want to and I'm so glad you're coining it as entrepreneurship because you want to encourage the spirit of entrepreneurship amongst young people. And the spirit of entrepreneurship in a way that, Devita just mentioned, saying that, we don't want to focus on, you want to be patient. You don't want to focus on instant gratification, just like a lot of millennials and Gen Zs, including myself, sometimes get carried away by. And to that end, the learning that you want to pass on is there anything particular that you're planning to do in curriculum? I'm intrigued because I studied commerce all my life. So this is I'm trying to understand, saying, is there anything different that is happening when it comes to your curriculum?
So what we've done fundamentally different is that we've planned the curriculum as a continuum where we start with what are the big problems that the world is facing and what are the big opportunities that are coming. Not in a 1 day, 2 day time span, but for the next several decades, what is it that the world is going to look like? And then we go back and start thinking of what are the solutions for these grand challenges that we face as humanity. And what happens is, because of this approach, the students start getting curious that, oh, now we have a problem to solve. And they start applying whatever they know to solving that problem. We pick them up from there and then start giving them the tools. It could be the tool of finance, accounts, marketing, this, that. And through that, they constantly keep applying that to problem solving. So what it leads to is that it starts developing this entrepreneurial and creative mindset from that young age. So rather than starting with, this is the syllabus, let's finish this, we start with a problem and then students kind of create their own syllabus, because it becomes personalized and customized. So that is the approach that we're taking in education.
So you give them the problem and then tell them, now you build the syllabus. I wish I was in a school like this. I'll tell you why. Because then I'll always be outstanding. I'll say my solutions are outside the room, not inside the room. But no, it's lovely to be able to chat with the two of you. Let me come to something that's slightly lighter. It's coffee with RS, which is a very similar to a show that happens, but not at all similar to what happens.
Do I get a hamper? Are you coming for a hamper?
I wish we had a hamper, but I can give you a mug. I can give you a mug at the end of it.
That he gave you for free.
Okay. No, so but let's try to figure out what's the first thought that comes to your mind when I say these words. All right, we start with Devita. What's the first thought when I say entrepreneurship?
Originality.
Originality. When I say India, Sahil, what's the first thought that comes to mind?
Youth.
Classroom, Devita.
Learning.
Career, Sahil.
Passion.
When I say youth, Devita, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Hope, excitement, energy.
And when I say I.I.M.U.N, what's the thought that comes to your mind, Sahil?
Rishabh Shah and organization. Yes, I've picked this up. Organization.
Oh God, don't say Rishabh. There are a lot of young people from I.I.M.U.N. They'll be like, Rishabh does nothing. He comes on these shows and talks and just says hello. There's nothing else that he does. But it's been a pleasure and really nice chatting to the two of you about jobs versus entrepreneurship, about the career choice of studying entrepreneurship and business administration, as it used to be called. And the best part about this conversation is that we're trying to create entrepreneurs both out there as a career and also via classroom syllabus, which will help them become much better. Many thanks to both Sahil Agarwal and, of course, Devita Saraf for joining this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. All the best to all of you in your studies and your business journeys.